In the world of royalty, where every moment is choreographed and every step is calculated, there exists a thin line between ceremonial duty and life or death protection. What happens when that line disappears in a split second? When a routine royal engagement transforms into a heart-stopping moment that tests the very essence of what it means to be a guardian of the crown. This is the story of Detective Sergeant James Mitchell, a seasoned protection officer whose years of training, instinct, and unwavering dedication would be put to the ultimate test on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in London. It's a tale that reveals the hidden world behind the pomp and circumstance, where split-second decisions can change the course of history, and where the true meaning of service to the crown is measured not in ceremonies, but in moments of pure courage. What you're about to discover is a story that unfolded in mere seconds, but had been building for years through training, preparation, and an unshakable commitment to duty. It's a reminder that behind every public appearance, every royal wave, and every carefully planned engagement, there are dedicated individuals whose sole purpose is to ensure that the monarchy continues, no matter the cost. This is not just a story about protection. It's about the human element behind the badge, the weight of responsibility that comes with safeguarding innocence, and the extraordinary measures ordinary people will take when faced with the unthinkable. Detective Sergeant James Mitchell had been awake since 4:30 that morning, as he had been every morning for the past 8 years of his service with the Royal Protection Squad. The alarm wasn't necessary anymore. His body had adapted to the rhythm of royal duty, understanding that protecting the most important family in Britain required a level of dedication that went beyond normal working hours. As he stood in his small flat in Pimlico, methodically checking his equipment for the third time, James couldn't have known that this Tuesday would test every skill he had learned, every instinct he had developed, and every promise he had made when he first took his oath. The morning briefing at Scotland Yard had been routine, covering Princess Charlotte's scheduled visit to the New Children's Hospital in South London. At 8 years old, Princess Charlotte had already begun accompanying her parents on carefully selected public engagements, part of her gradual introduction to royal duties. The visit was considered low risk, with standard security protocols in place. James had worked dozens of similar events, and the familiar routine of advanced planning, route reconnaissance, and crowd control had become second nature to him. James had joined the Metropolitan Police 15 years earlier, fresh out of university with a degree in criminology and dreams of making a difference. His path to the Royal Protection Squad hadn't been planned. After 7 years of exemplary service in various departments, including a commendation for bravery during a terrorist incident at London Bridge, he had been approached by his superiors about specialist training. The Royal Protection Squad represented the elite of police work, requiring not just physical fitness and tactical expertise, but also discretion, cultural sensitivity, and the ability to remain alert during hours of apparent monotony. The training had been intense. Months of advanced driving courses, where he learned to navigate London streets at high speed while maintaining communication with control rooms and making split-second tactical decisions. Weapons training that went far beyond standard police firearms, including close-quarters combat and the use of specialized equipment. But perhaps most importantly, James had learned to read people, situations, and environments with an almost supernatural awareness. He could spot potential threats in crowds of hundreds, assess the mental state of individuals from their body language, and maintain constant vigilance while appearing relaxed and approachable. The psychological preparation had been equally demanding. Protecting members of the royal family meant accepting that his life was secondary to theirs. It meant being willing to step between a bullet and a child, to make decisions that could result in his own death to preserve the life of someone he was sworn to protect. During his final assessment, the instructor had asked him a simple question that haunted many protection officers. Can you imagine throwing yourself in front of a moving vehicle to save someone else's child? James had answered without hesitation, but it wasn't until later that he understood the full weight of what that commitment meant. His personal life had adapted around his duties. Sarah, his girlfriend of 4 years, had initially struggled with the unpredictable hours and the secrecy surrounding his work. She couldn't understand why he couldn't tell her where he would be or when he would return. The relationship had ended 2 years ago, not in anger, but in a mutual recognition that his commitment to the crown left little room for the kind of partnership she deserved. James had accepted this sacrifice as part of his service, though the quiet evenings in his flat sometimes reminded him of what he had given up. The protection detail for Princess Charlotte required a different approach than adult royals. Children were naturally unpredictable, and Charlotte, despite her royal upbringing, remained an 8-year-old with the curiosity and spontaneity of any child her age. James had worked several events with her over the past year and had observed her personality carefully. She was intelligent and well-behaved, but also genuinely interested in the people she met and the places she visited. This genuine engagement, while endearing to the public, created additional security considerations. Unlike adults who could be coached to maintain distance and follow predetermined routes, Charlotte might want to approach someone in a crowd or investigate something that caught her attention. The team assigned to the hospital visit consisted of 6 officers, each with specific roles and areas of responsibility. James was designated as the close protection officer, meaning he would remain within arm's reach of Princess Charlotte throughout the visit. Detective Inspector Patricia Wells, a veteran with 12 years in royal protection, served as team leader and would coordinate with hospital security and local police. The others formed layers of security, managing crowds, monitoring communications, and maintaining escape routes. The hospital visit was scheduled to begin at 10:30 with a brief meeting with administrators, followed by a tour of the new pediatric wing, and concluding with Charlotte presenting artwork created by children from her school to young patients. The event was expected to last 90 minutes, with a buffer built into the schedule for unexpected delays or extended interactions. Media access was limited to a small pool of photographers and reporters, all of whom had been vetted and briefed on the restrictions and protocols for covering events involving minor royals. James arrived at the hospital at 8:15, 2 hours before the royal party was due. The advance work had already been completed days earlier, but he conducted his own walkthrough of every room Charlotte would enter, every corridor she would traverse, and every exit she might need to use. He checked sight lines, identified potential hiding places, and noted the location of every piece of medical equipment that could obstruct movement or provide concealment. The hospital staff had been briefed and background checked, but James made mental notes of every individual he encountered, cataloging faces and behaviors for later reference. The pediatric wing buzzed with excitement and nervous energy. Hospital administrators had spent weeks preparing for the visit, ensuring that every detail was perfect. The children who would meet Princess Charlotte had been selected carefully, representing different conditions and treatments to showcase the hospital's work. Their families had been briefed on protocol, though James knew that in moments of excitement, formal procedures often gave way to natural human reactions. A parent seeing their child meet a member of the royal family might move unexpectedly or call out, creating situations that required immediate assessment and response. Dr. Elizabeth Chun, the hospital's chief of pediatrics, met with James and the security team in her office overlooking the main entrance. She was a woman in her 50s with gentle eyes that reflected years of working with sick children and worried families. "We're all very excited about the princess's visit," she told the team. "The children have been looking forward to this for weeks. Some of them have been practicing what they want to say to her." James appreciated Dr. Chen's enthusiasm, but his mind was already running through scenarios. Excited children meant unpredictable movements. Emotional parents meant potential crowd surges. Medical equipment meant obstacles and potential weapons. Even in this controlled environment, with vetted personnel and limited access, his training demanded that he consider every possibility, no matter how remote. The morning sun streamed through the hospital windows as James positioned himself near the main entrance, watching the street outside through glass doors. The royal convoy would arrive precisely on schedule, as royal movements always did. 3 vehicles, a lead car with advanced security, the principal car carrying Princess Charlotte and her lady-in-waiting, and a follow-up vehicle with additional protection officers and medical support. The timing was calculated to minimize exposure, with the convoy spending as little time as possible in any single location. At 10:15, James's earpiece crackled to life with the familiar voice of Detective Inspector Wells. Convoy departing Kensington Palace. ETA, 15 minutes. The final preparations began. Hospital corridors were cleared of non-essential personnel. The media pool was positioned in designated areas. Security officers took their assigned positions throughout the building. James checked his equipment one final time. Radio, emergency medical kit, pepper spray, baton, and the Glock 17 pistol that he hoped never to use but was prepared to draw in an instant if necessary. The children who would meet Princess Charlotte had been brought to a designated waiting area, accompanied by their parents and medical staff. James observed them through a glass partition, noting their excitement and nervousness. There was Tommy, age 6, recovering from a complex heart surgery, who clutched a drawing he had made of himself and Princess Charlotte. Maria, age 10, undergoing treatment for leukemia, who had prepared a list of questions about royal life. David, age 7, in a wheelchair following a spinal injury, who had practiced his bout dozens of times with the help of nurses. These children represented the purpose behind the royal visit, James knew. Beyond the ceremony and protocol, beyond the security measures and media management, the visit was about bringing hope and joy to young people facing medical challenges that no child should have to endure. Princess Charlotte's presence would create memories that these children and their families would treasure forever, moments of magic in the midst of medical difficulties. James's job was to ensure that nothing interfered with that purpose, that no threat or danger could penetrate the carefully constructed environment where royal duty met human compassion. As the convoy's arrival time approached, James felt the familiar heightening of awareness that preceded every royal engagement. His senses sharpened, his focus narrowed, and years of training combined with natural instinct to create a state of controlled readiness. He had no way of knowing that in less than an hour, this state of preparation would be tested in ways that no training scenario had ever imagined, and that his commitment to protecting Princess Charlotte would be measured not in theoretical exercises, but in a moment of genuine peril that would unfold in the space of a few heartbeats. The royal convoy arrived with the precision of a Swiss timepiece, exactly at 10:30 as scheduled. James watched through the hospital's main entrance as the 3-vehicle motorcade approached, led by a discreet black sedan containing advanced security personnel. The principal vehicle, a specially modified Range Rover with bulletproof glass and reinforced panels, pulled smoothly to the curb. Detective Inspector Wells's voice crackled through his earpiece with confirmation of arrival, and James moved to his designated position beside the entrance doors. Princess Charlotte emerged from the vehicle with a natural grace that seemed inherent to the royal family, despite her young age. She wore a navy blue coat with matching shoes, her hair neatly styled, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had been taught that public appearances were both privilege and responsibility. James noted her bright eyes taking in the hospital facade, the small crowd of hospital staff gathered to greet her, and the photographers capturing her arrival. Even at 8 years old, she understood that every moment was being recorded, every expression analyzed, every gesture interpreted. Lady Margaret Thornberry, Princess Charlotte's lady-in-waiting for the day, followed closely behind. Lady Margaret was a woman in her 60s who had served the royal family for over 30 years, her experience invaluable in guiding young royals through the complexities of public engagements. She carried herself with the quiet authority of someone who had witnessed history unfold and understood that her role was to ensure that protocol served purpose rather than becoming an obstacle to genuine human connection. The hospital's chief administrator, Mr. Robert Harrison, stepped forward to make the formal introductions. He was clearly nervous, his hands trembling slightly as he bowed to Princess Charlotte, but his genuine warmth shone through his formal words of welcome. "Your Royal Highness, we are deeply honored by your visit to our hospital. The children have been so excited to meet you." Princess Charlotte smiled, and James observed how that simple expression seemed to ease the tension around her. "Thank you for having me, Mr. Harrison. I'm looking forward to meeting the children and seeing the wonderful work you do here." Her voice was clear and confident, the result of years of speech coaching and public appearance training, but James detected genuine enthusiasm beneath the formal words. The entourage moved into the hospital's main lobby, where a small ceremony had been prepared. A children's choir from a local primary school performed a brief song, their young voices filling the space with innocence and joy. Princess Charlotte listened attentively, occasionally glancing at James and the other protection officers with what he interpreted as understanding. She had grown up surrounded by security personnel and seemed to intuitively grasp that their constant presence was a necessary part of her public life. James maintained his position slightly behind and to the right of Princess Charlotte, his eyes constantly scanning the environment. The lobby was filled with hospital staff, administrators, and the approved media pool, perhaps 60 people in total. Each face was cataloged, each movement assessed. His training had taught him to look for anomalies, individuals whose behavior didn't match the expected patterns. A person standing too close, moving against the flow of the crowd, exhibiting signs of agitation or unusual focus. The hospital staff were clearly doing their best to maintain professional demeanor while dealing with the excitement of hosting royalty. Nurses whispered to each other behind hands raised to partially conceal their words. Doctors straightened ties and smoothed coats. Administrative staff checked and rechecked their prepared remarks. James understood that for most of these people, this would be the closest they would ever come to royalty, a story they would tell for years to come. Dr. Chen appeared beside the group, her earlier nervousness replaced by the calm competence that came from years of medical practice. "Your Royal Highness, if you're ready, I'd love to show you our new pediatric wing. We've made some remarkable advances in treating childhood diseases, and I think you'll find the facilities quite impressive." The tour began with a walk through the corridor leading to the pediatric wing. The walls have been decorated with artwork created by young patients, colorful drawings, and paintings that brought life and hope to the clinical environment. Princess Charlotte paused before several pieces, asking questions about the young artists and their inspirations. James noted how naturally she engaged with the creative expressions of children her own age, her interest appearing genuine rather than performed. "This one is by Tommy," Dr. Chun explained, indicating a crayon drawing of a hospital room with rainbow-colored medical equipment. "He's 6 years old and recovering from heart surgery. He'll be one of the children you'll meet later." "It's beautiful," Princess Charlotte replied, studying the drawing carefully. "He's made the hospital look like a happy place." "That's very clever." As they progressed through the corridors, James maintained his protective formation while observing the increased security presence throughout the building. Hospital security officers were positioned at regular intervals, and he could see Detective Inspector Wells's team members stationed at key points. The local police had established a perimeter outside the building, ensuring that the area remained secure throughout the visit. The pediatric wing itself was impressive, with modern equipment housed in rooms designed to be as welcoming as possible for young patients. Walls featured murals of forests and meadows. Ceiling tiles have been replaced with images of blue skies and clouds, and even medical equipment had been painted in bright, cheerful colors. It represented millions of pounds in investment and years of planning, all focused on creating an environment where children could receive world-class medical care while maintaining their sense of wonder and hope. Princess Charlotte was introduced to several members of the medical staff, including Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a pediatric oncologist who had recently returned from training in the United States. "We're treating children with cancers that would have been fatal just 10 years ago," Dr. Mitchell explained. The advances in treatment are happening so rapidly that we're constantly updating our protocols and training. That must be very rewarding work, Princess Charlotte replied, but also very challenging emotionally. James was struck by the maturity of her observation. Despite her young age, she seemed to understand that the doctors and nurses around her dealt with life and death situations involving children every day. Her response demonstrated not just good manners, but genuine empathy and understanding. The formal tour continued through several treatment areas, each showcasing different aspects of the hospital's capabilities. Princess Charlotte was shown the new MRI machine designed specifically for pediatric patients, with a smaller opening and cartoon decorations to make the experience less frightening for children. She observed a physical therapy session where young patients worked to regain mobility after injuries or surgeries, their determination evident despite their small size and obvious challenges. James noticed that Princess Charlotte's interest seemed to increase as the tour progressed. Unlike many adult royals who might maintain polite but distant engagement, she asked follow-up questions as they approached the area where Princess Charlotte would meet with young patients. James felt a familiar tightening of focus. Meeting with children always presented unique security challenges. Unlike adults, children couldn't be relied upon to maintain distance or follow protocols. They might run toward the princess, reach out to touch her, or become overwhelmed by emotion. Parents, too, might react unpredictably when seeing their child interact with royalty. Dr. Chun led the group to a large, bright room that had been specially prepared for the meeting. 6 children, ranging in age from 5 to 12, were seated with their parents and medical staff. Each child had been carefully selected to represent different aspects of the hospital's work, and each had been briefed on proper protocol for meeting a member of the royal family. But James knew that in moments of excitement, formal protocols often gave way to natural childish enthusiasm. The children's faces lit up as Princess Charlotte entered the room. Tommy, the 6-year-old heart patient, clutched his crayon, drawing more tightly. Maria, undergoing leukemia treatment, smiled despite the obvious effects of her chemotherapy. David, the 7-year-old in a wheelchair, practiced his bow one more time. The other children showed various degrees of nervousness and excitement, their parents hovering nearby with expressions of pride and anxiety. Princess Charlotte moved toward the first child with natural ease, kneeling down to bring herself to eye level. "Hello, Tommy. Dr. Chin told me you drew a beautiful picture of the hospital." Tommy's response was immediate and unguarded. "I drew it for you, Princess Charlotte. Do you like rainbows? I put rainbows on all the machines because rainbows make everything better." "I love rainbows," Princess Charlotte replied with genuine warmth. "And I think your idea of putting them on the machines is brilliant. It must make the doctors and nurses happy too." James watched the interaction carefully, noting how Princess Charlotte's natural rapport with children transformed the formal setting into something more genuine and meaningful. The barriers between royalty and subjects seemed to dissolve when faced with the honesty and openness of young children. But he also remained alert to the security implications of the increasingly relaxed atmosphere. As Princess Charlotte moved from child to child, spending several minutes with each one, James observed the reactions of everyone in the room. Parents fumbled for phones to capture photos, then remembered protocol and put them away. Medical staff beamed with pride at seeing their young patients receiving royal attention. The media pool captured moments that would illustrate stories about the future of the monarchy and the continuing relevance of royal visits to public institutions. But James's trained eye also caught something else. Through the room's large windows, which faced the hospital's main parking area, he could see movement that didn't match the established security protocols. A dark sedan was moving through the parking lot at a speed that seemed inconsistent with normal traffic flow. The vehicle wasn't part of the royal convoy, and it wasn't following the predetermined routes that had been cleared and secured. James's attention was momentarily divided between the heartwarming scene unfolding inside the hospital room and the unusual vehicle movement outside. The dark sedan had caught his eye not because it was inherently suspicious, but because it deviated from the carefully choreographed traffic patterns that had been established for the royal visit. In his 8 years of protection work, James had learned that threats often announce themselves through such subtle anomalies rather than obvious hostile actions. The vehicle appeared to be a standard executive sedan, possibly a BMW or Mercedes, with tinted windows that prevented him from seeing the occupants clearly. It moved through the parking lot with purpose, not the hesitant navigation of someone looking for a parking space, but the confident movement of someone who knew exactly where they were going. James made a mental note to report the observation to Detective Inspector Wells after the current meet, and Greek concluded. Inside the room, Princess Charlotte had moved to Maria, the 10-year-old leukemia patient whose bright scarf covered the hair loss from her chemotherapy treatments. Despite her obvious illness, Maria sat up straight and spoke with remarkable poise. "Your Royal Highness, I wanted to ask you about being a princess. Is it hard to always have to be so proper and perfect?" The question caught everyone off guard with its directness and insight. Princess Charlotte paused for a moment, considering her response carefully. "That's a very thoughtful question, Maria. Sometimes it is challenging to remember all the rules and protocols, but I've learned that being proper isn't really about being perfect. It's about showing respect for the people you meet and understanding that your behavior affects others." James was impressed by the maturity of her answer. At 8 years old, Princess Charlotte was already demonstrating the kind of wisdom that many adults never achieved, understanding that royal protocol served a purpose beyond mere tradition. Her response also revealed the extensive coaching she had received, but delivered with enough natural warmth to avoid sounding rehearsed. "But don't you ever want to just run around and be silly?" Maria pressed, her child's curiosity overriding any concern about proper etiquette. Princess Charlotte smiled broadly. "Of course I do. And I do run around and be silly, just not when I'm at official events like this one. At home with my brothers, I'm just as silly as any other girl my age." The honesty of her response delighted not just Maria, but all the children in the room. James could see them relaxing, their initial nervousness giving way to genuine engagement with someone they were beginning to see as a regular person despite her extraordinary circumstances. Dr. Chun moved to stand beside James, speaking quietly so as not to disturb the ongoing conversations. "She's remarkable for her age, isn't she? So natural with the children, but still maintaining the dignity expected of her position." James nodded, but part of his attention remained focused on the window. The dark sedan had disappeared from his line of sight, which could mean it had simply exited the parking area or had moved to a position where the hospital building blocked his view. Standard protocol would be to radio for confirmation of the vehicle status, but he hesitated to interrupt the positive atmosphere in the room unless the threat level justified it. Princess Charlotte had moved on to David, the 7-year-old in the wheelchair. She knelt beside his chair, bringing herself to his eye level with a natural ease that suggested this was not her first encounter with disabled children. "David, I understand you've been working very hard in physical therapy." David beamed with pride. "Yes, Princess Charlotte. The doctors say I might be able to walk with crutches someday. I practice every day, and I'm getting stronger." "That's wonderful, David. I think determination like yours is the most important quality anyone can have. Whether you walk with crutches, use a wheelchair, or find some other way to move around, what matters is that you never give up." James observed how Princess Charlotte managed to acknowledge David's disability without making it the focus of their interaction. Her words offered encouragement without false promises, realistic hope without dismissing the challenges he faced. It was a delicate balance that many adults would struggle to achieve, yet she handled it with apparent instinct. Lady Margaret moved closer to James, her experienced eye also monitoring the overall progress of the visit. "We're running slightly ahead of schedule," she murmured. "The children are responding so well that Her Royal Highness doesn't want to rush through the meetings." This presented a minor logistical challenge. Royal schedules were carefully calibrated, with each event timed to connect seamlessly with the next. Running ahead of schedule could be as problematic as running behind, potentially creating gaps in security coverage or forcing other participants to adjust their preparations. However, James understood that the human element of royal visits sometimes required flexibility in timing. The media pool had positioned themselves discreetly around the room, their cameras capturing the interactions between Princess Charlotte and each child. The photographs would tell a story of royal compassion and the continuing relevance of the monarchy to ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. But James knew that the real impact of the visit wasn't being captured in the photographs. It was in the faces of the children, the pride of their parents, and the boost to morale among hospital staff who dedicated their lives to pediatric care. Princess Charlotte spent several more minutes with each child, asking about their treatments, their families, and their interests outside of their medical conditions. She listened attentively to a description of Tommy's favorite video game, admired the bracelet that Maria was making for her mother, and examined the model airplane that David was building with his father. Each interaction demonstrated her ability to find common ground with children from very different backgrounds facing very different challenges. As the individual meetings concluded, Princess Charlotte was invited to observe a brief presentation prepared by the children. They had worked together to create a large banner reading, "Thank you, Princess Charlotte," decorated with handprints, drawings, and messages. The presentation was simple but heartfelt, representing hours of collaborative effort by children who were dealing with serious medical conditions but had found joy in preparing something special for their royal visitor. "This is beautiful," Princess Charlotte said, examining the banner carefully. "I can see that each of you contributed something special. It must have been wonderful to work together on this project." The children beamed with pride, their faces reflecting the satisfaction of having their efforts appreciated by someone they clearly held in high regard. Their parents watched with expressions of gratitude and amazement, understanding that their children were experiencing something truly unique that would remain a treasured memory regardless of what medical challenges lay ahead. James's radio crackled softly with an update from Detective Inspector Wells. The convoy was being prepared for departure, but they were aware of the schedule running ahead and were ready to accommodate a few extra minutes if needed. The message also included confirmation that perimeter security remained secure, with no incidents or concerns reported by the outer security ring. But as James acknowledged the radio message, his peripheral vision caught movement outside the window that immediately commanded his full attention. The dark sedan had reappeared, this time moving along the road that bordered the hospital's main entrance. The vehicle was traveling at normal speed, but something about its movement pattern triggered his trained instincts. It seemed to be making a second pass through the area, possibly conducting reconnaissance or positioning for some kind of action. James made a quick decision to radio Detective Inspector Wells with a brief report about the vehicle, using coded language that wouldn't alarm anyone in the room. "Alpha 1, this is Charlie 2. I have eyes on a dark executive sedan, unknown occupants, making multiple passes through the primary zone. Request status check." Detective Inspector Wells's response was immediate and professional. "Charlie 2, we copy. Vehicle is not part of established traffic control. Local units are being advised to investigate and identify." The exchange took less than 30 seconds and was conducted at a volume that didn't interrupt the ongoing activities in the room. But James felt a familiar heightening of alertness that came when potential threats moved from theoretical to possible. His training had taught him that most security concerns turn out to be innocent, but that the few genuine threats often began with exactly this kind of anomalous behavior. Princess Charlotte was now participating in a brief question and answer session with all the children together. They asked about life in the palace, whether she had pet animals, what her favorite subjects in school were, and if she ever got to meet famous people. Her answers were honest and age-appropriate, revealing glimpses of a normal childhood lived in extraordinary circumstances. "Do you get scared sometimes?" asked Maria, the leukemia patient, with a directness that only children could manage. Princess Charlotte considered the question seriously before answering. "Yes, sometimes I do get scared. Everyone gets scared sometimes. But I've learned that being brave doesn't mean you're never scared. It means you do what you need to do even when you are scared. The profundity of her answer struck everyone in the room, adults and children alike. James realized he was witnessing not just a royal visit, but a glimpse into the character development of someone who would someday play a significant role in British society and possibly the Commonwealth as a whole. But even as he appreciated the significance of the moment, James's professional instincts remained focused on the potential security concern outside. The dark sedan had now made 3 passes through the area, and his experience told him that innocent explanations were becoming increasingly unlikely. Normal traffic didn't circle hospital areas repeatedly during royal visits, and anyone with legitimate business would have been stopped and questioned by the perimeter security long before completing multiple circuits of the area. The question and answer session was drawing to a natural conclusion when James received an urgent message through his earpiece that made his blood run cold. Detective Inspector Wells's voice was controlled, but carried an undertone of serious concern. All units, we have identification on the dark sedan. Vehicle is registered to Camilla Ashworth, age 43, currently experiencing a significant mental health episode. She was reported missing by family members this morning after making threats against the royal family. James felt his entire body shift into a higher state of alertness while maintaining his outward appearance of calm professionalism. A mentally unstable individual making repeated passes through a security perimeter during a royal visit represented exactly the kind of threat that protection officers trained extensively to handle. The fact that specific threats had been made against the royal family elevated the situation from routine observation to active security concern. Charlie, too, acknowledges. He responded quietly into his radio, using the minimum words necessary to confirm receipt of the critical information. His mind was already running through contingency protocols, evaluating exit routes from the hospital room, and assessing the resources available for protecting Princess Charlotte if the situation escalated. The challenge was that any dramatic security response would likely traumatize the children they were visiting and potentially create more danger through panic and confusion. James needed to balance the growing security threat against the need to maintain the calm, positive atmosphere that had characterized the visit. His training had covered exactly these kinds of scenarios where protection requirements conflicted with public relations considerations. Princess Charlotte was in the midst of thanking the children for their banner when James caught Lady Margaret's attention with a subtle gesture. As Princess Charlotte's experienced lady-in-waiting, Lady Margaret understood that security concerns sometimes required immediate but discreet adjustments to royal schedules. She moved closer to James while maintaining her attention on the ongoing conversation. "We may need to expedite departure," James murmured to Lady Margaret, his words barely audible above the children's excited chatter. "Security situation developing. Nothing immediate, but we should begin wrapping up." Lady Margaret's decades of experience showed in her response. Without changing her facial expression or showing any sign of concern, she smoothly moved toward Princess Charlotte. "Your Royal Highness, I believe we have time for one more quick activity before we need to head to your next appointment." Princess Charlotte, demonstrating the royal family's instinctive understanding of protocol and timing, seamlessly transitioned into concluding remarks. "I've had such a wonderful time meeting all of you today. You've shown me how brave and strong you are, and I'm so impressed by the beautiful artwork you've created. I want you to know that I'll remember each of you and the special things you've shared with me." The children responded with genuine warmth, their earlier nervousness completely replaced by affection for the young princess who had treated them with such kindness and respect. Several of them asked if she might visit again, and Princess Charlotte promised to try, though she explained that royal schedules were complicated and she couldn't make definite commitments. James maintained his position near the room's exit while monitoring radio communications. Detective Inspector Wells was coordinating with local police units to locate and stop the suspect vehicle, but the sedan had apparently left the immediate area after its third pass. This could mean the threat was diminishing, or it could indicate that the individual was positioning for action at a different location along the planned departure route. Dr. Chen approached Princess Charlotte with a small gift from the hospital staff, a specially commissioned children's book about a young girl who visits sick children in hospitals and brings them hope through her kindness. "We thought you might enjoy this, Your Royal Highness." It was written by one of our child psychologists, and the illustrations were created by some of our young patients. Princess Charlotte accepted the gift with genuine appreciation, taking time to examine the cover illustration and read the dedication page. "This is beautiful, Dr. Chun. I'll treasure it, and I think it will help me remember the important work you're all doing here." As the formal presentations concluded, James began implementing subtle security adjustments. He positioned himself closer to Princess Charlotte and made eye contact with the other protection officers in the room, communicating through established signals that increased alertness was required. The changes were invisible to the civilians present, but represented a significant shift in the security posture surrounding the princess. Lady Margaret skillfully managed the transition from the patient meeting to departure preparations, ensuring that the children felt valued and remembered while gradually moving Princess Charlotte toward the exit. The media pool was given a final opportunity to capture photographs of the princess with all the children together, images that would undoubtedly appear on front pages and social media around the world. "Thank you all so much for welcoming me to your hospital," Princess Charlotte said in her closing remarks. "I've learned so much about the incredible work you're doing here, and I've been inspired by the courage and strength of these amazing children. I hope the new wing helps many more children get the care they need." Her words were clearly heartfelt, demonstrating that despite her young age and formal training, she had genuinely connected with the purpose and mission of the hospital visit. The adults in the room responded with applause, while the children beamed with pride at having successfully hosted a member of the royal family. James's earpiece crackled with an update that made his pulse quicken. "All units. Suspect vehicle has been located approximately half a mile from the hospital, parked near the planned departure route. Subject appears to be alone in the vehicle, but showing signs of agitation. Local units are establishing a perimeter, but have not yet made contact." This information changed the security calculus significantly. The suspect was no longer a mobile threat conducting reconnaissance, but a stationary threat positioned along the route that Princess Charlotte would need to travel to reach her next engagement. James immediately began considering alternative departure routes and communication protocols for coordinating with the convoy drivers. The entourage began moving toward the hospital's main entrance, following the same route they had used upon arrival, but with heightened security awareness. James noted the positions of his fellow protection officers and confirmed that communication systems were functioning properly. He also made visual contact with hospital security personnel, ensuring that the building's internal security would remain elevated until the royal party had completely departed the area. Princess Charlotte walked beside Dr. Chun, continuing their conversation about the hospital's work and asking thoughtful questions about future expansion plans. Her ability to maintain genuine engagement while security concerns swirled around her demonstrated remarkable composure for someone her age. James wondered if this was natural royal training or if she had developed an intuitive understanding that her protection officers would handle security matters while she focused on her public duties. As they reached the main lobby, James could see through the glass entrance doors that the royal convoy had been repositioned. Instead of the standard formation facing the planned departure route, the vehicles were now oriented toward an alternative exit that would avoid the area where the suspect had been located. Detective Inspector Wells was visible beside the lead vehicle, coordinating with convoy drivers and perimeter security units. The hospital staff who had gathered to see Princess Charlotte off lined the lobby, their faces reflecting the positive impact of the visit. James knew that royal visits served multiple purposes beyond the immediate public relations benefits. They boosted morale among dedicated public servants, drew attention to important institutions and causes, and created lasting memories for individuals who dedicated their lives to serving others. But As the entourage approached the entrance doors, James's radio erupted with urgent communications that made his blood freeze. All units, suspect vehicle is mobile and moving rapidly toward the hospital. ETA, approximately 90 seconds. All units take protective positions immediately. The threat that had been developing gradually throughout the visit was now reaching a critical moment. James faced the split-second decision that every protection officer hoped never to confront. How to protect his principal when a genuine threat was bearing down on them with potentially deadly intent. Without hesitation, James moved to Princess Charlotte's side and placed a protective hand on her shoulder. "Your Royal Highness, we need to step back from the entrance for a moment," he said calmly, his voice carrying authority, but not panic. Princess Charlotte looked at him with intelligent eyes that seemed to understand that something significant was happening, though she couldn't know the specific nature of the threat. "Of course, Detective Sergeant Mitchell," she replied, demonstrating her trust in his judgment and her understanding of the chain of command in security situations. Lady Margaret immediately moved to Princess Charlotte's other side, creating a protective barrier while maintaining the appearance of a routine pause in the departure process. The other protection officers subtly adjusted their positions, creating overlapping fields of observation and multiple layers of defense around the young princess. Through the glass doors, James could see Detective Inspector Wells speaking rapidly in her radio while making urgent hand signals toward the hospital entrance. The convoy drivers were starting their engines and preparing for immediate departure once the threat situation was resolved. Local police units were establishing roadblocks and preparing to intercept the suspect vehicle before it could reach the hospital grounds. The next 60 seconds unfolded with the terrifying clarity that James had experienced only once before, during a terrorist incident early in his career. Time seemed to slow down while his senses became hyperacute, taking in every sound, movement, and potential threat with the intensity that came when training met genuine life-or-death circumstances. Detective Inspector Wells's voice cut through his earpiece with professional urgency. "Suspect vehicle approaching hospital entrance at high speed. All units prepare for immediate protective action. Convoy engines running, ready for emergency departure." James could see the dark sedan through the glass entrance doors, moving far too quickly for the hospital's access road. The vehicle was weaving slightly, suggesting either mechanical problems or an impaired driver, but its general trajectory was unmistakably aimed at the hospital's main entrance where Princess Charlotte stood just meters from the glass doors. "Your Royal Highness, we're going to move away from the entrance now," James said, his voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. His hand remained on Princess Charlotte's shoulder, ready to guide her or, if necessary, physically move her out of harm's way. Princess Charlotte responded with remarkable composure, her royal training evident in her immediate compliance with security instructions. "Yes, Detective Sergeant Mitchell," she replied, allowing herself to be guided toward the interior of the lobby while maintaining the dignity expected of her position even in crisis situations. Lady Margaret moved with the fluid grace of someone who had navigated decades of royal emergencies, positioning herself to shield Princess Charlotte while appearing to make casual conversation. The hospital staff around them sensed something was happening, but couldn't identify the specific nature of the concern, creating a strange atmosphere of underlying tension masked by superficial normalcy. Through the entrance doors, James watched the dark sedan approach the final turn before the hospital entrance. The vehicle was now clearly being driven erratically, accelerating and braking unpredictably while maintaining its general course toward the building. Police sirens could be heard in the distance, but James's experienced assessment told him they wouldn't intercept the vehicle before it reached the hospital grounds. All protection officers, Code Red protocols now in effect, Detective Inspector Wells announced through the radio system. Code Red meant immediate threat to the principal, with authorization for any necessary protective measures, including the use of deadly force. James felt his body shift into the hyper-alert state that years of training had programmed into his nervous system. The hospital security team, while professional and well-trained, were not equipped or prepared for this level of threat. James could see them looking to his team for guidance while trying to manage the growing concern among hospital staff who were beginning to realize that something serious was developing. Dr. Chin approached Lady Margaret with obvious worry, but Lady Margaret's slight gesture indicated that questions should wait until the situation was resolved. Princess Charlotte, demonstrating wisdom beyond her years, remained quiet and attentive while staying close to her protection officers. James was struck by her composure under circumstances that would terrify most adults, let alone an 8-year-old child. Her behavior suggested that royal training included preparation for exactly these kinds of emergency situations, though he hoped this was her first genuine experience with serious threats. The dark sedan completed its turn and was now on a straight approach to the hospital entrance, approximately 200 meters away and closing rapidly. James could see that the vehicle was a dark blue BMW sedan, its windshield reflecting the afternoon sunlight in a way that obscured his view of the driver. The car's erratic movement had become more pronounced, suggesting that whatever mental health crisis was driving this situation had reached a critical phase. Protective formation around the principal, James commanded quietly, using hand signals to coordinate with his fellow officers. The team moved into a practiced defensive arrangement that would allow them to shield Princess Charlotte from multiple directions while maintaining mobility for rapid evacuation if necessary. The hospital lobby had become a study in controlled tension. The protection officers moved with purposeful calm. The hospital staff watched with growing anxiety, and Princess Charlotte remained composed at the center of it all, trusting in the professionalism of the people whose job was to keep her safe. James realized that this moment would likely become a defining memory in her young life, potentially shaping her understanding of the unique challenges and risks that came with her royal status. Detective Inspector Wells's voice crackled through the radio with increasing urgency. Suspect vehicle now 50 meters from entrance and not slowing down. All units prepare for impact scenario. Convoy standing by for emergency evacuation. James made a split-second decision that would later be analyzed and debated by security professionals around the world. Instead of continuing to move Princess Charlotte deeper into the hospital building, where she would be protected from the immediate vehicle threat, but potentially trapped if the situation escalated, he chose to maintain their position near the entrance where rapid evacuation remained possible. "Your Royal Highness, I need you to stay very close to me for the next few moments," James said, his voice carrying the calm authority that came from years of training and absolute confidence in his ability to protect her. "We may need to move quickly." The dark sedan was now clearly visible through the entrance doors, its erratic path bringing it directly toward the hospital's main entrance. James could see the driver through the windshield now, a woman with disheveled hair who appeared to be struggling with the vehicle's controls. Whether the struggle was due to mechanical problems, impaired driving abilities, or deliberate intent to cause harm, the result was the same: a 2-ton vehicle moving at dangerous speed toward a building containing a member of the royal family. In the final seconds before impact, James experienced the strange time dilation that many protection officers described in after-action reports. He could see every detail with crystal clarity: the slight tremor in Lady Margaret's hand as she maintained her protective position, the concerned faces of hospital staff reflected in the glass doors, the way Princess Charlotte's hair moved as she turned to look at him with complete trust in her eyes. The BMW struck the concrete barrier posts that had been installed precisely to prevent vehicles from ramming into the hospital entrance. The impact was tremendous, the sound of crushing metal and shattering glass echoing through the lobby as the vehicle crumpled against the protective barriers. But James's professionally trained eye immediately assessed that the barrier system had worked exactly as designed, absorbing the vehicle's kinetic energy and preventing it from reaching the building's entrance. Steam and smoke rose from the wrecked vehicle as James maintained his protective stance around Princess Charlotte, knowing that the immediate threat might be neutralized, but that the situation could still evolve rapidly. The driver could be injured, and requiring medical attention, or could emerge from the vehicle with weapons, or the crash could have been a deliberate distraction for a secondary attack. Threat vehicle neutralized by security barriers, Detective Inspector Wells reported through the radio system. Emergency medical services en route. All protection officers maintain defensive positions pending all clear. Princess Charlotte had witnessed the entire incident with remarkable composure, though James could see in her expression that she understood the seriousness of what had just occurred. "Is the driver hurt?" she asked, her first concern being for the welfare of someone who had just posed a significant threat to her safety. Her question revealed the kind of character that would serve her well throughout a lifetime of public service. Even when faced with someone who had potentially intended her harm, her instinctive response was concern for their well-being. James realized he was witnessing the development of the kind of royal character that had sustained the monarchy through centuries of challenges and changes. "The emergency services will take care of the driver, Your Royal Highness," James replied, maintaining his protective position while coordinating with his team through subtle gestures. "Right now, we need to focus on getting you safely to your next appointment." Through the shattered glass and twisted metal of the BMW, James could see the driver slumped over the steering wheel, apparently unconscious but moving slightly. Emergency medical technicians were already approaching the crash site, while police officers established a secure perimeter around the wreckage. The woman who had posed such a significant threat just moments earlier was now herself in need of medical attention and psychological care. Detective Inspector Wells approached the group in the lobby, her professional demeanor intact despite the high stress of the past few minutes. "Your Royal Highness, the threat has been neutralized and the area is secure. We're ready to proceed with departure whenever you're comfortable." Princess Charlotte looked around the lobby at the hospital staff who had witnessed this frightening incident, her expression showing concern for their well-being as much as her own. "I hope everyone is all right," she said to Dr. Chun, who had remained close throughout the crisis. "This must have been very frightening for you and your staff." Dr. Chin's response reflected both relief and admiration. "Your Royal Highness, we're all fine thanks to the excellent work of your protection officers. Your composure during such a frightening situation has been truly remarkable." As the entourage prepared to depart through a secondary exit that bypassed the crash site, James reflected on the split-second decisions that had defined the past few minutes. His choice to shield Princess Charlotte with his own body when the vehicle struck the barriers, his assessment of threat levels and response options, and his coordination with his team had all been tested under genuine life-threatening circumstances. The alternative departure route took them through a service corridor that led to a side entrance where the royal convoy had repositioned. As they walked, Princess Charlotte fell into step beside James, her earlier composure giving way to natural curiosity about what had just occurred. "Detective Sergeant Mitchell, was that woman trying to hurt me?" she asked with a directness that only children could manage. James considered his response carefully, balancing honesty with age-appropriate explanation. "She was very troubled and confused, Your Royal Highness. Sometimes when people are suffering from mental illness, they don't think clearly and make very poor decisions. But that's exactly why you have protection officers like our team, to make sure you stay safe even when other people make dangerous choices." Princess Charlotte nodded thoughtfully, processing this explanation in the context of what she had just experienced. "I hope she gets the help she needs," she said, once again demonstrating the empathy and concern for others that seemed to be fundamental to her character. As they reached the convoy and prepared for departure, James realized that this incident would likely result in significant changes to royal protection protocols. The fact that a mentally unstable individual had been able to approach so close to a member of the royal family, despite extensive security measures, would require thorough analysis and procedural adjustments. But as Princess Charlotte climbed into the protection vehicle, turning to wave goodbye to the hospital staff who had gathered to see her off despite the frightening incident, James felt a deep sense of professional satisfaction. He had done exactly what he had sworn to do when he first joined the Royal Protection Squad. He had placed himself between danger and a member of the royal family, and yet ensured her safety regardless of the personal risk to himself. The convoy pulled away from the hospital, leaving behind the wreckage of the BMW and the emergency responders who were caring for its disturbed driver. As they drove toward Princess Charlotte's next appointment, James understood that this incident would become part of both their personal histories. A day when training met reality, when duty met danger, and when the true meaning of royal protection was measured not in ceremonies or protocols, but in split-second decisions made under the most challenging circumstances imaginable.